Story time, part 3 of Who Did I Hire? This is the story of how I went from hiring my stepsister to work at my dog grooming salon to firing her and getting her arrested. My stepsister, will call her Lynn. Her mother, will call her Amy, had been harassing my mother for about 10 years at this point, ever since my mother married Jake. Amy's ex-husband, they got a divorce. For irreconcilable differences, he hated her, okay? He wanted to get out. And he went with my mom way too fast, and Amy harassed them for years. You'll have to go back and watch part 1 and 2, and that explains who raised Lynn, my stepsister, who had hired to work at my dog grooming salon. There's a reason she's the way she is. I'm a recovering addict. I have been clean and off opiates for almost 13 years now. It's like by the time I ever even met the kids, I was clean and sober for about 2 years. Because remember, it took a long time before the kids could come around at all. Not that I wanted to like hang out with little kids anyway, like no offense. So they were cool or whatever, but oh no, little kids can't come over? Horrible. And after I got clean and decided I wanted to go into the field of dog grooming, I found someone that really took me under their wing and like taught me how to groom and really helped me. And that didn't end up turning out great, and that may be a story time for another time, but I'm very thankful to them for the skills that I got. When I saw Lynn and she was just about to go into her like senior year in high school, and she really seemed to like enjoy working at the salon and grooming. She had been working there for like a few months now, and I really wanted to like take her under my wing and help her, and she was like really cool to me. Like I said, like throughout all of the bullshit that her mother had said about me and did and all these things, like Lynn really was really cool to me. I never had any issues with her. And so I really wanted to help her out. So I started her, she was in high school. I started her at $18 an hour plus tips. And people at my salon tip really well. So she was probably making closer to like around 23 an hour if you like total it all out. And then shortly after, once she actually started grooming and doing more than just bathing dogs, like I bumped her up and she was making 22 an hour plus tips. So then that equals about like probably 28 around there, like in some good weeks an hour. So I made sure to pay her really well. I offered like paid time off, all those things, and letting her work as much as she wanted. Like for a high school student to have all that like income where she didn't really have any bills is like really unheard of. Like I don't think she realized that making that good money, like my first job I was making $7 an hour, so like it's just a big difference. And I was also paying her to teach her a skill, so like I was paying her like pretty good money to like learn grooming. A lot of people have to pay money to learn grooming. I would pay for like all expenses paid trips to Six Flags, to go on vacations. We went to Canada once. I paid for everything. They didn't pay for a dime. And I didn't care. I wasn't expecting anything back. I was just like helping out. I wanted her to succeed. I wanted her to grow in this business. At this point, things were going good. Lynn's family, including Amy, were being like weirdly nice to me. I even got a Facebook message from Lynn's auntie, we'll call her. I can insert that here, just like saying like how thankful they are that I'm being so nice to her. And I was like, and I didn't have a problem with it. Like we had a good brother-sister relationship, and we had a good working relationship until she got a little too comfortable and just a little too big for her britches. But we got to remember here, we're dealing with a 17-year-old about to graduate high school. And I don't know if like Amy and the rest of her family were just being nice to me to like piss off my mom, because that would work. Because I mean, she's done things to mess with my mom like so much throughout all of the years. At this point in the story, I have moved out of my mom and Jake's house. And my mom and Jake live there with Lynn now, and the younger 2 step-siblings would just come over like every other weekend. Lynn basically had like a live-in boyfriend that would just stay the night there in her bed. It was kind of weird. I remember my mom being like, this is a little weird, but it's not my kid, so whatever. Or my mom said like, my father would have never let that happen. So I was moved into a house with my best friend, who is gonna be a bigger part of the story later. So what should we call him? Derek, okay? So let's call my best friend that I was living with Derek. I called him Straighty. He will be a bigger part of the story later. One weekend, my mom and Jake go on a trip, and Lynn is there alone. She ends up having her boyfriend over and some friends, and you know, they partake and they smoke some weed and whatever else like 17-year-olds do. Lynn and her friends end up leaving traces of like the paraphernalia that they used, and my mom and Jake realized that they were smoking in the house, and they confronted her, and she got mad, denied everything, said like it wasn't hers, like her friends probably just left it there, didn't know she wasn't allowed to have friends over and all this stuff, blah blah blah. And she got mad, and they told her, well, your boyfriend can't stay the night here anymore, like we need to actually have some rules now, like you can't just like be partying here. And because that's how it was, like I will give Amy credit in the fact that she was super super strict with Lynn and would not let her boyfriend sleep over or like be out late at night, like be out all hours of the night with no curfew, any of that. Like she was very strict, made her do chores, all that stuff. And when she was living with her father and my mom, like she didn't have to do chores. She could come and go as she pleased. Her boyfriend stayed the night, all that. Another thing that Jake does, he is an enabler of the kids. And I think he did that to make up for the fact that, like, their mother's so horrible. He tried to be so good, but it actually, enabling them also hurts them too. After she was caught partying at the house and Jake and my mom started to set rules and boundaries for her, Lynn got very upset and ended up moving back in with her mom. And of course, Amy took her back in because, of course, if, like, Jake and my mom are the villain anytime, like, definitely, she's like, oh, come with me. And Lynn didn't want to live there. She didn't like all the rules, but she just liked to play the game like that. Like, she learned from her mother. Her mother used Lynn as a pawn when she was a kid. And so she, like, that's just such learned behavior. And Lynn was still on my mom and Jake's phone plan. And something happened where she was going to switch the phone over to her boyfriend or something. And she ended up leaving her phone at my mom's house. My mom looks in the phone and lo and behold, sees a bunch of text messages that Lynn was sending to Amy, her mother, about lies, talking crap about my mom and Josh, like saying that, like, it wasn't her weed, saying that it was my mom's weed, and that she's smoking in the house, and like she can't even breathe in there. And I think she said something that they were like sex fiends and like having like sex party. Like, she was making up these like crazy lies to her mom, while also at the same time talking bad about Amy, her mother, to my mom and Jake. And so it's really, again, learned behavior that she learned from Amy, that like, and that it's really sad, you guys. If you really think about it, the only way that Lynn knew to connect to her mother was to start talking crap about her father. That is bad, but because she knew from 8 years old, and before that, but at least like at 8, she could talk shit about her father and connect with her mother. Before that, it was talking bad about whoever and connecting with her mom. That's the only way she could connect with her mom. And so when she realized that she wasn't going to get her way and there was like rules at her dad's house, she's like, I'm gonna go on team mom now and trash talk them all the way. And just saying crazy things. My mother was so upset, but she didn't say anything, and she didn't act any different. Every time Lynn came around, she still treated her exactly the same and didn't let her know that she read the messages, because she said, like, at the end of the day, she was the one that snuck in the phone, and so she shouldn't have done that, and so she's not going to treat Lynn any different, and she didn't. And even after Lynn freaked out and was like, I'm moving out and everything, Lynn and her friend came back to get some of the things and didn't think my mom was going to be home, but my mom stayed home from work. And my mom was completely nice to them. They brought their dog. She pet the dog. She was completely fine. Said, do you want me to help you bring your things out? Like, she wasn't treating her any differently. Lynn was just mad that she was given rules and she left and spewed a bunch of stuff to her mom. My mom, once again, had to be the bigger person and had to suck it up for her husband, Jake, and once again, enable Lynn. And so she just got away with everything. Then inevitably, so she moves back in with her mom. Inevitably, that doesn't go well. Shocker. And she ends up wanting to leave her mom. I don't even remember what happened between her and her mom. Like that, I don't even know. And so she ends up crawling back to Jake's house. And then he, of course, lets her come back in, let the boyfriend stay the night again, blah, blah, blah. Like, he didn't give any rules. And my mom didn't want her to move back in. She really didn't. But she said, she's like, I'll allow it for Jake. Like, she always just was stepped on. For a stepmother, she was stepped on. And she was just a placeman. She was like, whatever, you can just come stay in my house, do whatever you want. And I was just witnessing all of this and just trying to stay neutral at work. Because so at this point, it was me, Lynn, and Julia working at the salon. Lynn started not to like Julia. And it's a trend. She doesn't like anyone that she works with. She started to complain that Julia didn't clean enough, started to complain that, like, Julia didn't do enough, didn't groom enough dogs, like all this stuff. Just really wanted to cause issues with her, because I really think Lynn just wanted it to just be me and her. She wanted control of the salon. And the messed up thing is that Julia was really nice to her. She gave her $100 gift card to like Aroma Joe's for her birthday, and then I think like literally the next day Lynn was like talking smack about her. Like, she's just like that type of person. She's not nice. And so Lynn would just start like having an attitude towards Julia and just be like super bitchy, and it was creating a hostile work environment. And I started having issues with Julia, like calling out a lot. And I really think it's because she didn't want to be around Lynn. And I don't blame her. Like, but then that was another thing that would fire up Lynn. And she's like, oh, well, Julia called out again. Like, you need to fire her. Like, she would try to get me to fire Julia all the time. She was really trying to pin me and Julia against each other because she wanted control. She wanted like me and Lynn to be on a team against her. And I want all of my employees to be a team. And then we come to the first complaint I got at work from Julia telling me that Lynn was being too rough with the dogs. And dog grooming is a really hard job. You have to be able to master and control your emotions, because dogs feed off your energies and emotions. So if you're like stressed out from something that's happening at home and you bring that energy to work with the dog, you're going to stress the dog out. Lynn didn't know how to like separate that yet. She was still such a baby groomer. Like, she wasn't even grooming for a year at this point. Like, she was really just like advancing from a bather. She was doing really well. Like, she was doing really well at the job, but she was just getting too emotional with the dogs, and she would just get like worked up, and she would like yell at them and get upset and transfer any like negative emotion she had anywhere else onto the dog, and it wasn't good. And Julia complained, and I talked to Lynn and I told her this exactly, like, you need to try to be calm. I was like, if you have a dog that's like annoying you, instead of like getting mad at it and yelling at it, just put the dog away and like take a break, calm down. Like I tried to talk to her, but I had to do it very delicately because you can't just go up and because Lynn can't take constructive criticism. So I couldn't just go and be like, you're being too rough with the dog. She would like freak out and she'd be like, who said that? And she would like blame Julia. It's always like someone she has to blame. And so I had to maneuver a way to talk to her about it without all like the deflection she was going to throw at me. And so I just tried to like subtly like say that. And she just wouldn't. Like she'd be like, yeah, I know. Like I'm not rough with the dogs or whatever. Like it's just, there was no getting through to her. Like she was being on her best behavior around me, obviously. And I wanted to believe Lynn. Like she was my stepsister. I've known her since she was 8 years old. Like, so I wanted to believe her because I did believe Julia too. So I talked to her and told her like, just, you can't be rough. And then one day the FedEx lady comes to deliver a package and it's Julia that accepts the package. And the FedEx lady tells her, that girl that works here, the other day I dropped off a package and I saw her smack a dog in the face. And Julia came and told me, and I confronted her, Lynn. I told her, I was like, yeah, so Julia said the FedEx lady said she saw you smack a dog. And then instantly, I should not have mentioned Julia because instantly she said, Julia's lying. Julia doesn't like me. She's trying to mess with me. And that started the war between Julia and Lynn that inevitably led us to Lynn getting arrested. And now that I have had an outside person complain about her being rough, actually more than rough, smacking a dog, that is when I decided to get cameras installed into my salon and watch part 4 to find out what I saw on those cameras.